Did you not just say that you prepared for this hearing today? $1 million, okay? A quick Google search or using your AI could tell you $1 million was spent. How much money was spent on autism in Minnesota in 2024?
I don't have the number in front of me.
Were you governor in 2024?
A sitting governor of Minnesota could not tell Congress how much his state spent on autism services in the year he was actually governing. The answer was $343 million. 7 years earlier, it was $1 million. That is a 34,000% increase, and the governor of the state where that money was spent had no explanation for it. Stay with me until the end, because the numbers behind this hearing are more disturbing than anything said in that room.
Chair now recognizes Ms. Mace from South Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for being here today. Governor Walz and Attorney General Ellison, you have presided over one of the worst government fraud scandals in American history. This was money intended to feed hungry children, help kids with autism, provide food and shelter and health care to the needy, and more. You both allowed billions in these American taxpayer dollars to be pillaged and plundered by Somali pirates. You knew this was happening, you chose to do nothing about it, and in some cases, you even enabled it. Attorney General Ellison, you even profited from this fraud by taking campaign donations from these Somalians after pledging to help quash the investigation into them. I find your behavior despicable. My questions this morning, my first go to Governor Walz, and I hope you learned some lessons from your last hearing with me on the Oversight Committee. Have you learned anything since then?
I did, that if I didn't speak up, 2 of my people would be dead, Congresswoman, and I warned you.
Okay, Governor Walz, what is a woman? Have you learned that lesson? Do you know what a woman is?
I'm the governor of Minnesota, Congresswoman.
Do you know what a woman
I'm not here
is?
to be your prop for your obsession.
So
I
if you
taught middle
can't
school your
define what a
obsession.
woman is, you certainly can't define what fraud is. If you can't even define what a woman is, you can't define fraud. How much money was spent on autism in Minnesota in 2017, Governor?
I don't have those numbers in front of me, Congresswoman.
Did you prepare for this hearing today? Did you do any preparation
I take
for this hearing
Congress
today?
seriously.
And you've seen the numbers about autism fraud in Minnesota. So we're going to do some Minnesota math with you today, okay? Are you ready? How much money was spent on 2017 for autism in Minnesota? How much?
I don't know. I wasn't the governor.
Okay. Did you not just say that you prepared for this hearing today? $1 million, okay? A quick Google search or using your AI could tell you $1 million was spent. How much money was spent on autism in Minnesota in 2024?
I don't have the number in front of me. As
Were you governor in 2024?
I was, but I'm not the head of
Okay, so your excuse before that you didn't know what 2017 autism numbers were because you were not governor, and today you can't answer the numbers about 2024 as governor, and you still said you prepared for this hearing today. It's unbelievable. $343 million was spent in 2024. What percent increase is that from 1 million to 343 million? What percentage increase is that?
I'm not here to be your prop. Go ahead and tell me.
Well, are you governor of Minnesota or not?
Yes, I am. I'm
Okay,
not.
well,
I'm
when
not
I'm
a prop
governor of
for a
South
member of
Carolina,
Congress.
you can sure as hell bet that I'm going to know the math. The math is 34,200% increase, an increase of 343 times what it was in this time period. Do you know the number of children in Minnesota?
I know that Minnesota ranked as a top 3 state for children in the last year.
What is the total population in Minnesota?
5.7 million.
Okay. What is the total population of children in Minnesota?
I don't have the number in front of me right now.
Are you governor of Minnesota?
I know 400,000 were cut out of health care last week by the actions you made.
Are you governor of Minnesota?
I am.
And you don't know the number of children residing in Minnesota?
I don't have the specific number. It's 5.7 million.
That's your total population.
What is your age? What is the age? 0 to 5? 0 to 19?
You have approximately 1.2 million children in Minnesota.
What
I'm not
age?
even governor of South Carolina. Our population in South Carolina is 5.5 million. We have approximately 1.1 million children under the age of 18 in my home state of South Carolina, okay? As governor, I expect you to know this information. Thank God you're not Vice President of the United States. Do you know approximately how many children in Minnesota are autistic or on the spectrum?
No, I don't have that number.
Okay. Well, if you take the CDC's roughly 1 in 36 kids are on the spectrum, we're talking about approximately 33,000 kids. In South Carolina, it's about 31,000 or so. What is, do you know what this is per child, spending-wise, in the fraud for autistic kids in Minnesota?
Again, I'm not here to be your prop. Go ahead and tell us.
Is doing Minnesota math a prop? This is math. We're talking about fraud.
Minnesota ranks at the top. Where does South Carolina rank?
We're talking about money.
Where does South Carolina children rank on healthiness?
These are my questions for you. It doesn't go the other way around unless we're debating on the debate stage. And we're not.
If you're asking questions about being governor, it does.
I'm asking you questions about being governor of Minnesota, which you can't answer. This is basic math. And you can't even answer. Do you even care about kids in Minnesota?
They rank near the top in every category. My children are fed. My children are housed. My children have health care.
Getting the services they need in Minnesota.
My children have the best schools.
No, you don't. Mr. Chairman, I yield back. Mr. Chairman.
Lady yields back.
Mr. Chairman.
Who's, Ms. Mulbert? Yes.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, Mr. Mace.
May I make my two motions?
Proceed.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman, I move that the committee issue a subpoena to the Honorable Pamela Jo Bondi to appear before the committee for a deposition regarding the department's handling of the investigation into Jeffrey Epstein and his associates and compliance with the Epstein Files Transparency Act.
A motion has been made. The committee will hold this motion in abeyance until the end of today's hearing. The committee will now proceed with today's hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the committee issue a subpoena to the Office of Congressional Workplace Rights for the awards and settlements paid pursuant to Section 415 of the Congressional Accountability Act prior to December 12, 2018, with only redactions allowable for the personally identifiable information of victims, alleged victims, and witnesses. Thank you, ma'am.
A motion has been made. The committee will hold this motion in abeyance until the end of today's hearing.
There is a difference between a difficult question and an embarrassing one. A difficult question requires expertise, context, and careful reasoning to answer well. An embarrassing question is one that any competent executive should be able to answer immediately and cannot. What Representative Nancy Mace did in that hearing room was not complicated. She did not ask Governor Tim Walz about the intricacies of federal block grant allocation formulas or the technical definitions of Medicaid eligibility categories. She asked him about the basic fiscal profile of programs operating under his direct executive authority in the state he governs. How much did Minnesota spend on autism services in 2024? What percentage of Minnesota residents are children? Approximately how many of those children are on the autism spectrum? He could not answer any of those questions. Now, before anything else is said, let us be precise about what that failure means and what it does not mean. A governor overseeing a state government with a budget of tens of billions of dollars cannot be expected to carry every line item figure in his head at any given moment. That is a reasonable acknowledgement. But a governor who claims to have prepared for a congressional oversight hearing specifically focused on a fraud scandal involving programs under his administration's supervision should have a working familiarity with the basic numerical parameters of those programs. That is not an unreasonable expectation. That is a minimum standard for appearing before Congress and asking to be taken seriously as an executive. The numbers that Representative Mace put into the record are the ones that demand serious attention regardless of whatever political theater surrounded them in that room. Minnesota spent approximately $1 million on autism-related services in 2017. By 2024, that figure had reached $343 million. That is a 34,200% increase over 7 years. To put that in concrete terms, spending on that program category grew by a factor of 343 times its original size in less than a decade. Now, there are legitimate reasons why spending on autism services can grow significantly over time. Diagnostic criteria have expanded. Awareness has increased. More families are identifying and seeking services for children on the spectrum. The CDC currently estimates that approximately 1 in 36 children meet the diagnostic criteria for autism spectrum disorder, a figure that has risen substantially from estimates published in earlier decades. States that prioritize early intervention and comprehensive support services will naturally see increased costs as more children are identified and enrolled. All of that is true. None of it explains a 34,000% increase. Even accounting for every legitimate factor driving increased autism diagnoses and service enrollment, the trajectory of Minnesota's spending curve is an outlier that demands explanation. Neighboring states serving comparable populations did not experience spending increases of remotely similar magnitude during the same period. That discrepancy is precisely what congressional oversight is designed to investigate, and it is precisely what the governor of Minnesota should have been prepared to discuss in detail when he agreed to appear before that committee. The broader context of this hearing involves what has been described as one of the largest pandemic-era fraud cases in American history. The Feeding Our Future scandal, which originated in Minnesota, involved a network of organizations that allegedly exploited federal child nutrition programs to claim reimbursements for meals that were never served to children who did not exist. Federal prosecutors described the scheme as involving approximately $250 million in fraudulent claims from a program that was specifically designed to feed low-income children during school closures. The individuals charged in connection with that case included members of Minnesota's Somali American community. Federal indictments alleged that money was transferred internationally, that a portion of the fraudulently obtained funds left the country, and that the network operated with a level of organizational sophistication that indicated it was not opportunistic, but deliberate and structured. The question that the hearing was circling around, without always landing on it directly, is what the state government knew and when. Federal programs of the scale involved in child nutrition and disability services require state-level administration and oversight. States are responsible for verifying eligibility, monitoring provider compliance, and flagging anomalies that suggest fraudulent billing. Those oversight functions exist precisely to catch exactly the kind of scheme that federal prosecutors eventually unraveled in Minnesota. When a program grows from $1 million to $343 million in 7 years, that growth trajectory should generate automatic scrutiny from state administrators. It should trigger audits. It should produce enhanced monitoring. It should result in someone in the executive branch asking why spending in a specific service category is accelerating at a rate that cannot be explained by population growth, diagnostic expansion, or policy changes alone. The question of whether that scrutiny happened, and if not, why not, is a legitimate and important oversight question. It is the question that the governor of the state where this occurred should have been able to address when he sat down in front of Congress. Attorney General Keith Ellison's presence at the hearing introduced a separate dimension that also deserves serious examination. The allegation that Ellison received campaign contributions from individuals connected to organizations under investigation in the state during a period when that investigation was ongoing is a claim about a direct conflict of interest in the administration of justice. If accurate, it represents a failure of the most basic ethical obligation of a state attorney general, which is to enforce a law without regard to personal political benefit. Ellison has disputed the characterization of those contributions and their relationship to investigative decisions. That dispute is precisely the kind of factual question that congressional oversight exists to resolve through documented evidence rather than competing assertions. The subpoena process that Representative Mace initiated at the conclusion of the hearing is the appropriate mechanism for pursuing that documentation. The subpoena motion regarding Jeffrey Epstein materials and the separate motion regarding Congressional Accountability Act settlements are worth noting as well, not because they're directly connected to the Minnesota fraud question, but because they illustrate the broader accountability environment in which this hearing was operating. There are multiple unresolved questions about institutional transparency currently before Congress, and the willingness to issue subpoenas when voluntary cooperation produces inadequate answers is a core function of legislative oversight that should be nonpartisan in principle even when it is politically charged in practice. What the exchange between Representative Mace and Governor Walz ultimately demonstrated is a tension that runs through every major government accountability debate. The officials responsible for administering public programs have strong incentives to describe those programs in terms of their intended beneficiaries and their stated goals. The officials responsible for oversight have an obligation to evaluate those programs in terms of their actual outcomes and their fiscal integrity. When those two perspectives collide in a public hearing, the result is often more heat than light. But the math does not care about the heat. $1 million in 2017, $343 million in 2024. A governor who cannot explain the increase. An attorney general accused of a conflict of interest in the investigation that eventually exposed it. And programs that were designed to help the most vulnerable children in Minnesota that may have been systematically exploited by people who understood exactly how to game a system with insufficient oversight. Those are the facts on the record. They deserve more than a political argument about who is using whom as a prop. They deserve full accounting from every official whose decisions contributed to conditions that made the scandal possible. The children those programs were supposed to serve deserved that accounting from the beginning. They still deserve it now. Hit like and subscribe because accountability coverage at this depth is exactly what this channel is here to deliver, and you do not want to miss what comes next in this story.